Is it true that we don't keep statistics around crime committed by nationality or ethnicity? Is it?
Yeah. So the statistics at best are patchy. Of course, if someone commits a crime, one of the first things they have to do if you are arrested is identify themselves. So really, you should then know their home address, their date of birth, and therefore their nationality, you would think. But nothing is coordinated or correlated, which is what they're doing in other Western countries. And when you look at some of the trends emanating out of countries such as Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, Germany, France, where they do keep this information, there are some really shocking and eye-opening things that I think we need to talk about. The reason I know that we definitely do not keep these statistics is I've spoken to someone who very much was connected to this work, and they reassured me that no, we don't keep them. Well, it didn't reassure me actually, but they did say yes, no, this isn't something that we do. Now, I think that is a willful choice. Because it'd be very easy to do. I think that's a willful choice, and I think it's a perilous one.
It is scary. So, what are some of the things that you've been finding in other countries, the reports they've been keeping, and why is this relevant with regards to mass immigration?
Okay, so there's various sources, open sources, that people can use to do what I've done. First of all, there's an organised crime index. It's a fascinating website. Just Google organised crime index, and it comes up with a sort of heat map of the world, and you can click on a country, zoom in, and read about their profile, basically, in terms of criminality. And what you learn is when it comes to organised crime, the vast majority of that in the United Kingdom is being perpetrated by foreign gangs. That's not surprising. That's probably the case in multiple other countries. So you're talking about your drug dealing, your people trafficking, your human trafficking, insurance fraud, the list goes on. And a lot of these are increasingly being perpetrated by Albanian gangs who are consolidating the underworld. Drugs are coming largely from Afghanistan via Pakistan. You started to get some Turkish gangs around the fringes. So that information is available on OSINT, if you will, open source intelligence. In terms of other crimes, which are perpetrated by individuals and therefore are not organised, that is where we're not containing that information. But where other countries do, and I looked specifically at sexual assaults and rapes, because I'm beginning to get a very visceral sense that women are not as safe as they used to be in this country. And I think we need to get to the root causes of that. When you look at other countries, there are very clear, definitive trends that a disproportionate number of rapes and sexual assaults are being perpetrated by people who are not domestic-born individuals. In a lot of Scandinavian countries, what the statistics are showing is there is a huge number of sexual assaults and rapes carried out by people from the Middle East and North Africa. And if you correlate that with inward migratory flows, one can draw a conclusion that what has happened as a direct result of sizable inward migration from countries where men have a very different culture to our own, that there has been this compounding effect of women ending up potentially more vulnerable in society. And, I was speaking about this the other day, and where do you point the finger of blame for all of this? People in the middle classes, when they work in, Oxford University or the BBC, and they're sitting next to somebody, a colleague who is from one of these countries, will find this person to be charming and educated and pleasant, and they probably are. And they probably share our values. Those values, even within the countries of origin, are going to be dramatically different from young men who, even in their own countries, are sort of somewhat disenfranchised, who aren't well educated. The goat herder from Afghanistan is going to have a different attitude towards women from an Afghan man who worked at the government level as an interpreter, went on to work at the BBC. That's very clear.
Did you see that Ross Kemp thing? Ross Kemp, for non-Brits, is just a celebrity guy, does documentaries, and he spoke to these three guys about doing that, what they do to women and those kinds of things, and said, don't you feel bad about it? And every time they were trying to answer the question, they were trying to almost humor him and indulge him and they would go, well, I suppose I do feel bad because maybe I'll end up with a child and I didn't want it. But they couldn't get themselves to a place where they might feel sympathy for the woman. There were 3 or 4 guys he was talking to. It was just so foreign to them.
Do people think that when young men are coming from war-torn areas, or impoverished areas, such as North Africa, the Middle East, where we know there are barbaric practices against women, this is well documented, we know that the Taliban aren't exactly a Me Too movement, do they think they suddenly land on our shores and go like, oh, I can't wait to protect women and enhance their values? No, what's happening is a number of things happening. Number one is actually one of the cynical methods people traffickers are using to recruit young men to buy their services, if you will, is saying, oh, look over here, look at the women in England. This is happening. These sorts of things are circulating on TikTok as bait. At the same time, in their own countries, women are going to be very covered up or not even outside without an escort. And they have mobile phone handsets, and everyone's smartphones now have access to pornography. Strangely, not in many Muslim countries where those sites are blocked and banned, but over here, of course, they are. And then what they're most likely to see in the majority of pornography are westernized women. They're not seeing the sort of women they see back at home. So that's another element. Then, of course, they come and they realise on a Saturday night, most girls are going out in mini skirts and are drunk, something else they'll have never seen before. Then on top of this, there's another layer, which is if they happen to be attending a mosque with more radical viewpoints, they could potentially have an imam or cleric telling them that white Western girls do not value themselves. In fact, they are a free-for-all. They're accessible. You don't treat our own women like this, but these girls, they don't deserve your respect, so do what you like. You mix this all together as a cocktail with, at the same time, a lot of women, especially as empaths, are the most likely to be standing there with placards saying refugees welcome, frankly. But also they're being educated to look out for their subconscious bias. So when they've got these young guys coming up to them who, you know, they recognize are from a different culture, going like, oh, I want to talk to you, I want to come back to your house, da, da, da. Instead of listening to their gut and thinking, I'm not sure that I should be enabling this person to access my personal space or be in a position where I could be vulnerable with this person, they're probably going to be thinking to themselves, I'm a racist if I don't do this, or this person deserves my sympathy. Poor thing, he must have been through so much. It's no wonder that you're seeing this huge spike in rape and sexual assaults. And I'm not pointing the finger at nationalities because, like I said, there's a huge diversity within a nation and within a culture. I'm pointing the finger at the fact that policies have been put in place by governments that have created this horrible systemic problem now in the West. And now we're being silenced and we're not being allowed to talk about it and it's not being addressed. And frankly, that to me beggars belief that we would sacrifice the safety and security of our women and our young girls at the altar of political correctness.